Steve may can unmute her.
Okay.
She's not muted, her volume's down.
Steve, you got it?
No, it's not on my end. She's clear here. She has to allow permission on the iPad to use its audio.
All right, we'll have Logan send her a text. In the meantime, let this record reflect that all council members are present. And after Logan gets finished with his text, we'll go ahead and move to the city administrator report.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We're going to do this meeting a little bit different. All of you should have already received your packets with each department report in it, and we're kind of going to skip over most of that for the brevity of this meeting and the complexity here of, hearing everybody work through this. But if you have any questions on any particular area of the report, just let us know. Otherwise, when we get to each department here, we can kind of let them notate, where they've had some issues as far as dealing with this COVID-19 situation here on their department and how that's changed operations, if at all. One thing I wanted to note as a city administrator and working through all those ordinances a week or so ago, I'm holding off filling any vacancies at this time other than at the water treatment plant and at the police department, whatever's already in the works at the police department. Other than that, we're not going to be filling any positions at this time due to the unknown revenue situation. Otherwise, we're still quite busy. We have a lot of things in the works, a lot of contracts already out there that we have to execute as far as projects and whatnot. But our city services are very, very busy right now, even though it looks like it's slowed down elsewhere. One other thing I wanted to note is the gatherings ordinance. I'm going to ask that we kind of postpone that until next week. I think we'll get a little bit more clarity should the governor issue another order on Monday. There's been some back and forth because of a lot of ambiguity of language between his stack of orders and what we have, and we just want to make sure everything stays as clear as possible from here on, just by using the existing governor's shelter-in-place order, which really is probably robust enough without us getting into anything superfluous right now with any more orders or ordinances. So we hope to get some more clarity on that within the next week, should he do an extension or clarify some more points with another order.
Okay. That being said, need a motion to amend the agenda by removing action item number 4, ordinance to impose a prohibition of gatherings of more than 10 people.
Ross Bradley, move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Do I have a second?
Wayne Adcock, second.
Second by Wayne Adcock. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, before you take a vote on it, let me just highlight one issue. This is Paul Rosenthal, City Attorney.
Yes, sir.
I want to highlight for those that in these discussions, the governor, after he gave his April 2nd executive order on Thursday, issued 2 additional orders on Friday to clarify his April 2nd order. So I just want to make sure that it was clear to everybody that local law enforcement, including our police department, has arrest authority and has the authority to impose the mandates contained within the governor's shelter-in-place order from April the 2nd, because there was some question and concern about whether it was only sheriff's departments. But his second order from Friday makes that very clear that our local law enforcement authority has the ability to enforce that shelter-in-place order, and that by anyone breaking that order or not following the terms of that order can be found guilty of a misdemeanor. His order has similar language that we put in our gathering ordinance of saying they're going to give a verbal warning first, or they encourage to give a verbal warning first before any actual arrests or citations are made. But Chief Watts and his department do now have authority as of Friday afternoon to enforce the governor's shelter-in-place order which is one of the main reasons that obviates the need for our gathering ordinance at this point. Plus, there's a lot of ambiguity as to whether or not we're preempted or not, and hopefully we'll get some more clarity on that this week.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We'll remove that from our agenda for the week. Moving to the Central Services update, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, sir. I guess for me, the biggest changes we've had is alternating schedules with the grounds guys, the buildings guys. We got a little bit lucky that contractors actually took over some of the larger right-of-ways starting April 1st, so that helps us out. I had sent all of you guys an email kind of outlining how I was handling everything. I mean, with those guys, I'm splitting them 2 and 2, and we're essentially working 6 days a week doing it that way. And then I've got my central services supervisor, my parks guy, they're jumping in, cutting grass at the parks to maintain those. IT, I've got Steve currently working as remotely as possible. Luke is on site pretty much every day. And then a couple of the buildings guys are just sanitizing our buildings, you know, on a daily basis. We have our cleaning crew in the evenings, and then I'm making sure my guys do the same during the day so we can kind of hit it double. If any of the other facilities need it too, you know, just let me know, and you know, I can share those. Jeremiah and Danny too, I know they're both here. I wanted to give them props to everything that they've stepped up and done, and they've coordinated with their departments to make this work and to keep people as safe as we can, and to essentially just kind of, you know, figure it out as we go a little bit. But projects are continuing pretty much. Plaza is still going. I think they submitted their second pay request yesterday, I believe it was. Yeah, so I mean, it's just, you know, kind of figuring it out and, you know, getting people to think more efficiently instead of always, you know, working from in an office or working from site, you know, just making the most of the time that they have. So, and I'll be glad to take any questions or any concerns.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey? Hearing none, we'll move to committee information. Mr. Adcock, Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Thompson, you can feel free to hit the highlights of the report or whatever you want to talk about, how the COVID-19 has affected your department.
Okay. Yeah, the report you have before you obviously is February. We are still working on March numbers. We don't have those finalized yet. I will say that March numbers, revenues aren't going to be hit as bad as April. Obviously, April will probably be a substantial hit here and there. There'll be some areas that are hit worse than others. So as soon as I get those numbers, I'll get those out to y'all as soon as I can. But operational wise, we have started a staggered schedule, a rotating schedule with everyone. All areas are still operational. The call center, meter reading, billing, drive-through, customer service is still doing new service for any customers. They're doing that through the drive-through, and the finance department. So we're still doing AP checks. We're still processing everything. I do want customers to be aware that we do have other payment options than paying in person. We do have online on our City of Monroe website. We have a phone, we have mail, and we also have a Dropbox that they can utilize. I have been told that the drive-through has been backed up occasionally some days, and people are having to wait. People are very understanding. They have been patient with that, but just to know that they have other options. And our cashiers are handing out brochures to let them know that as well. Obviously, everyone knows that we are not doing any non-payment disconnects and late fees through the end of April as it stands right now. And so we're also not issuing any extensions because those are not needed as well. So that's going to help with a lot of the traffic as far as calls and services go. On the financial side, I have set up an account with FEMA to do the reimbursement for the public assistance reimbursement. I did go through a webinar on that earlier in the week or last week. to try to get that ball rolling. I'll be working with all the department heads on that and their expenses of what we can and cannot use for that reimbursement. I have taken advantage of several webinars. I think I've done more webinars in the last couple of weeks than I have in the last year related to financial planning resources, trying to get that done, and related to the Family First Coronavirus Recovery Act. So we'll get that going, and as well, we're still waiting on final numbers from Alden Jenkins on our audit, so we hope to have that wrapped up soon too. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Hearing none. Thank you, Beth. Mayor, that's all we have on the finance for this evening.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Garrett, Airport.
Chris Bailey.
Airport's pretty quiet. GAA has sent out several correspondents kind of giving us direction on how to handle some of the traffic and whatnot, but it's more towards the commercial traffic. It does discuss some of the just routine, some of the hobbyists at the airport, and everybody has held up their end of things. Bill Scott's not having operations right now to keep everybody kind of separated. Flight Train, they kind of do what they do. I mean, it's a one-on-one basis, and a lot of their stuff can be done online via webcam too. So airport's been fine. That's all I got.
Anyone have any questions for Chris? If not, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Thank you, Chris. David Dickinson, Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Smith, solid waste report. And where is Mr. Smith?
Danny, you turn your audio on.
He's not on mute, Mr. Mayor. It's connection on his end.
Okay.
My audio wasn't on to begin with, but he may not realize you have to go down to the bottom and start audio.
Bottom left corner.
Yeah.
Come back. Yeah, we'll come back to you. We'll be back to you in a second.
Because he probably can't hear us.
There you go. He's figuring it out, I think.
Oh, well, we're going to give him, we'll give him one more shot after utilities. Move into Chairman Nathan Little for utilities.
Oh, wait a minute. Did you have anything from Jeremiah?
Yeah, where's Mr. Still?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to circle back to your whole department.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand that.
Well, Mr. Thompson, then would you tell us about Telecom Electric Park?
Yes, sir, Mr. Little. Telecom's been mostly working from home with the engineers doing their job 95% from home, with my technicians reporting from home and taking care of the tickets in a great way. We have been mainly down to 1 or 2 tickets a day at the end of each day. So I'm real happy with that. Electric is a little different. Those are the skills those guys have to be, I got to keep those guys separated. So I've got those reporting to 2 different areas, staying completely away from each other. And then I've got some other technicians that are staying on a single truck by themselves in case something happens to those 2 crews. So we have 3 layers, first 2 crews, and then the technicians and myself. So that's been going well. The contractor got done on Spring Street. And if you'll see, the telecom is going to be transferred here shortly, but we started on the decorative lighting out on the western side of Spring Street today. We do still have multiple services coming in for new houses, and we're staying on top of those as best we can. We don't want to shut that side of the business down as well as everything else. But other than that, we've been moving along pretty good and getting work done. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Thompson? If not, thank you, Brian. Move on to Mr. Middlebrooks.
Pretty much everything. Crews in half. I got half the crew report.
Can you turn your volume up a little bit?
Better?
Just scoot a little closer to your mic.
You hear me?
Yeah, that's, go ahead.
Because it's all the way up. I don't, but everything's pretty much normal. We got the crew split in half going to the warehouse. We limit that interaction between the two. In our plants, we split their shifts. We also teamed up with Sinclair Water Authority. We sent 2 of our employees to their plant, and they sent 2 of their employees to our plant. Just in case it becomes worse, their plant is very similar to ours. Allow us to have backup in case we lost every operator to the virus. Outside of that, everything else is normal.
All right, so anybody got any questions for Rodney? If not, thank you, Rodney. That's all we have, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody. We're coming back to you, Mr. Dickinson. Is Danny Smith, are you on now, Danny? Okay. Go ahead, David. You want to shoot it over to Jeremiah?
All right, Mr. Still.
How about me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good. Good to be with everyone this evening. From a streets and transportation standpoint, we are attacking things as they come in from a very minimal standpoint from personnel. We've split our department in half, 1 day on, 1 day off, doing jobs that are needing to be done, but that can be done with very minimal amount of personnel. We're doing a lot of sign cleaning throughout the city, touching up potholes and utility cuts as they come in that can be done with the crews that we have in place. Our biggest issue and obstacle has just been the uncertainty of this event. Nothing from a work standpoint as far as projects or what we need to do. We are creating really good habits in the middle of all this mess, becoming more, having a more cleanliness approach to ourselves, our equipment, our trucks, our facilities. It's kind of a good thing that we're getting in that habit to create that. That's going to be something that will last and protect this from this point forward. But as far as obstacles, our infrastructure is still our infrastructure, and we're maintaining it on a day-to-day basis. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Jeremiah, I appreciate your outlook and your guys attacking things in that positive manner, because there are a lot of ways that you can look at this virus and the way it's making us all behave, and I appreciate your staying positive.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I'm going to take Danny's to help him out, because I've got most of his stuff in front of me.
Thank you.
Essentially, his collection routes and his guys, he's kind of staggered a few schedules, trying to keep people separated as best they can, but also you got to keep in mind with everybody at home, and then, spring break pops up and different things of that nature. The amount of garbage and trash is definitely up. So that's been a challenge, but they are very close to staying on schedule and have done a tremendous job during this time. But it's kind of like I had told them, being in sanitation, it's almost like they face these kind of viruses and germs and whatnot on a daily basis. So it's not that it's the same old hat, but it's, maybe not as far out of the norm as what the rest of us are facing a little bit. So they've done a great job. They've really worked hard and put in a heck of an effort to try to keep up with the amount of trash that they've had to collect during this time. I mean, we're 2.5, 3 weeks in now. So, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if I can.
I guess there are no questions, so that's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving to public safety, Mr. Bradley, Mr. Larry Bradley.
Yes, I guess first of all, just thank both of the public safety departments. These are the people that can't work from home very much, because they're out protecting us. But we'll see if Chief Owens will tell us about the fire department first.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. We've made quite a few changes in the last month, and I'll just start off no different than everybody else. You know, we closed the station to the public just over a month ago. And then, of course, as far as administrative staff, doing remote work with that as much as possible. We've actually, instead of having a minimum staffing, our minimum is now our maximum staffing. And so we've moved that down to 7 just to reduce the number of people we have there and still be able to meet the needs of the citizens. We did divide the department. We did send the engine company down to the airport, and they're actually staying down there, part of the pilot's lounge. And just huge kudos and great things to pretty much all the departments that helped us make that happen. We literally took nothing and made it into something in just a few days. And when I say all the departments, the utilities, central services, the police department even loaned us some equipment. IT, just everyone just made that happen as seamlessly as possible, and it really came together good. And now we have reduced the chance if we do have a contamination of one engine or one unit, it's not going to affect the entire department. We can still answer calls back to the community. With that, we have split that. You know, half of our department is, you know, one engine company is actually answering all the EMS calls. The other half is just doing the fires and rescues. And so we do have that divided. You know, that was just the best way that we can make it happen. And we do have means to cross that over. So if we do have a fire, all the engines are going to go to that. I don't want to be misleading on that, but we just have one engine dedicated for EMS response, for COVID-19 response if needed, and how we're going to answer that. And I will touch base a little bit back on that in a minute when I get to the call volume. We do have a decon station within the truck bay, and we have opened that up for the entire city, all city employees. If we do have a contamination, whether it's whoever it is, they can literally drive their apparatus into the bay, get out, decon the apparatus or decon their piece of equipment, and literally step into the decon station right there, shower, disrobe, and just go through the whole process. So we do have that open to all of our city employees as far as that goes. I do want to talk a little bit about our call volume. You know, again, there are things that we don't do. We're not directly going to all COVID-19 calls. We're letting Walton EMS handle a lot of that. We're there more for standby. So even when I look at my call numbers from today or from this week or the last month, you know, our call volumes are actually down. And for multiple reasons. One, there's just a lot of people that don't want to go to the hospital right now unless they just absolutely have to. So some of those numbers are down on that side. I do have some just over the last week where we're just trying to track it, and our data is just so new on this. You know, overall, we've had 2 suspected cases where we know we've ran, 1 confirmed COVID-19 case that we've run. But to flip that back over, we've had 35, you know, in the last week that were just not COVID-19 related at all. So we're out there, we're just getting it done. The fire marshal's working with some of our local stores, trying to work with them so they're not closing all their exits or just trying to direct everything. Like I saw something on the news this morning, we're trying to, a couple of days ago, we've been trying to work with some of our stores so we can kind of reroute the customers as they go through to reduce the exposure there. Otherwise, our biggest problem has been personal protective equipment, which I think everybody's been a problem. Masks, gloves, gowns, all that things. We've worked very hard to try to find that. We've worked with the EMA. We've been working with vendors, working for suppliers, literally just trying to find it anywhere we can. And we're just now getting to where I feel comfortable. And we're still a little short, but we definitely have at least the bare necessities for our personnel to have to go out there. Otherwise, to communicate to you and to the citizens, you know, just expect a little bit of a slower response. If we have an engine coming from the airport, it's going to take a little bit longer for us to respond to get to where we need to be, but we are coming. Right now, we're expecting 60-second delays, which doesn't sound like much until you're in an emergency and you're waiting that extra 60 seconds. Otherwise, I do believe that's it. I'll be glad to answer any questions. We've definitely had a lot of feedback from the community, a lot of support from the community. And so we want to say thank you for that. But again, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Bill?
I have a question for you, Bill. Will your guys be mixing up on different shifts, or will they all be staying in the same situation?
We're trying. It's
one shift to the next shift.
As far as the shifts are still, they're completely separated. And I'm not sure as far as the shifts are shifts. And so A shift is A shift, B is B, and C is C. And so we're trying to keep that as much as we can, you know, unless we do have a staffing issue and we're having to shift someone or pull someone or pull in a temp. The other thing we're trying to do.
I'm talking about the shift itself. Will the same guys be going to the airport and the other guys will be staying at the fire department?
That is, yes. That is something we're trying to do. And again, it just comes down to staffing. It is my desire to say, hey, you three stay here at the airport. That's what you're going to do for the next month. Just be happy with it. And again, it just comes down to staffing and where we have to have people. So if I'm short in one place, we might have to pull up our person. But our goal is to leave those at the airport, those at the fire station, at the fire station. Did that answer your question?
Good deal.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
The police department, Chief Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Just reporting on what we've been dealing with here lately. One of the things that we implemented, this happened a few weeks ago, was everybody that was sworn law enforcement, we went ahead and like our CID and our joint operation unit that normally works inside the PD here, we kind of quarantine them to their vehicles. So all my sworn officers are actually out on the road right now. So you'll see a lot more police officers in their vehicles in the city and the neighborhoods patrolling our streets. And that's just so we can keep them from cross-contaminating, having less interaction with one another. We're trying to limit our interaction with a lot of people in the community by just not being proactive as we normally are. We're mainly reactive right now, responding to the needs of the community. One of the things we did here in the police department was we implemented a check station at the back door. You're only one way coming into PD now and one way out. When you come in the back of our PD, we have a desk sergeant that's positioned right there that will process you in for the most part, check your temperature. You have to sanitize right there. And believe it or not, they're even spraying their clothing and shoes and stuff down with Lysol, just doing our best to try to prevent it from getting inside our building here. All our officers, I put out an order a couple weeks ago that these guys are to wear all PPE gear. So anytime we do have any interaction with the citizens in the community out here, they have to wear the mask, the gloves, even eye protection. And before they get back in their vehicles, they're to sanitize again, you know, spray their vehicles down and stuff with Lysol to prevent from spreading this thing. We're taking steps to take calls by phone on less calls, i.e., you know, civil disputes or like a stolen bicycle or something. If we can do these reports by phone, that's what we're going to do. Just, again, trying to limit that exposure to our officers as well. Another thing that we did implement was, you know, we had the time clocks. Of course, that's no longer in use. We're handwriting all our times and stuff in to prevent from spreading it as well. One of the things I did do was I brought in full-time now with me is my PIO, Shannon Haynes. You know, we sent him to the public information school several months back. And so you'll start seeing more information coming out from us on our social media website. And again, I can't stress it enough from the law enforcement end. I know there's been a lot of talk about, you know, people's rights and freedoms and stuff in regard to this shelter in place. From the law enforcement end, our goal is to educate our citizens community on the severity of what we're dealing with. We do not wish to take anybody to jail or to issue citations. Since the order came out, We have still had some public gatherings, but for the most part, people are dispersing when we arrive on scene and give the warnings. We are seeing an increase in our domestic disputes and some of our fight calls, and we're getting loud music complaints. And of course, that's to be expected with everybody being at home. I think people are going stir crazy and having, starting to get tired of one another. Did have an interesting situation Saturday night. Sadie could probably speak to it. We recovered a stolen car Saturday night. Our officers actually got a hit on one of our LPR license plate readers, and we were able to recover that stolen car. But it was an interesting adventure for our officers, to say the least. They ended up going down one of the railroad tracks and recovering a vehicle there in a vehicle pursuit. But I'll be glad to answer any questions if you should have any.
Any questions, Chief? Okay. Again, to both of y'all, just thank you very much for what your people are doing out there on our lines. Mr. Mayor, that's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Moving to Ms. Malcolm, Planning and Code.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Report.
Yes, thank you. The code office, we've basically been able to maintain all the services and activities that we normally do. Some of the measures that we've taken are basically to split the shifts up with the ladies that are in the office, Dolores and Debbie. They're doing a great job. Ones were remotely working Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the other one Tuesday, Thursday, and they're switching off each week. But they're both available during working hours every day. The marshals, they work in the same office, so we've instituted a clean in, clean out process for them. They're not to be in there in the office at the same time, so they're coordinating with each other via text or phone call or email as far as being in the office and doing paperwork. But mostly they're just working remotely as well from their cars. They're not interacting directly with the public. They're issuing repair cleanup notices and mailing those if necessary. And our inspections and permitting is going basically as normal, except for that we don't have the people coming in the office. We're able to handle it via electronic means, or even customer service downstairs has been great working with us to deal with people through the drive-through. And we've been taking advantage of that, and we appreciate them for helping us get that done. We're just basically working on cleaning frequently touched surfaces, maintaining social distancing, and using disinfectant spray whenever we need to, hand sanitizer. But that's pretty much all the operational changes that we've made, and we haven't had any real hiccups as far as services go.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any
you.
questions? Okay. I'll defer back to the mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Mr. Ross Bradley, Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Crosby, you got something to share with us this fine afternoon? One more time, Sadie.
Sadie, is your volume on?
Yes, the host had to unmute me. We good?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Well, this has changed a lot for businesses in downtown, as you all know. And so you can see in the report the many changes to our events that are underway. We're trying to postpone what we can, having to cancel a number of them just because that's the best thing to do. Visitor centers closed to the public as well right now as a city building. And with the DDA stabilization grants that you all approved at the emergency called meeting, we actually have 50 applications that have come in so far. Our DDA board will be reviewing those on this Thursday at the DDA board meeting. The grants that have come in are for more than the city funding, so DDA will have to decide to allocate and what to allocate from their funding to meet the grants that we've gotten applications for. And more, by and large, they're from restaurants and retail, what we were aiming for. We've also been trying to keep everything updated on our downtown page, which I put that website there. With our businesses changing hours, more and more of those are just going to closed all the way, but we're trying to keep that updated as it happens, and also put resources there for small businesses. And like Beth said, I feel like there's at least 2 webinars a day that you could sign up for about learning the resources, getting that information out. And when we find good information, just passing that on to businesses and owners as best we can. Even our first post that I put an image from it from our social media, that reached over 98,000 people. So people care, they're trying to do what they can and stay safe and kind of balance being there for our local businesses and employees, but also taking proper precautions. So we're kind of in a stabilization mode right now. And then eventually we'll get to recovery. So we're trying to prepare and think towards that. But right now we're just trying to do the best we can to support people as they are in a holding pattern. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Say that, how many
Can you
how
give
many
us an
people that you said applied for the grant?
We have 50 applications that have come in. When I made the report, it was, I think it says 38, but since then, the first round was due last Friday to be considered at the April DDA meeting. And so we have 49 applications that'll be considered on Thursday. And then we've had 1 come in since then that will, if there's more funding approved from DDA, then we'll consider that one in May.
Let me ask you this. How are you all going to divide that money up? Is it going to be equal divide of some companies going to get more than the other?
On every application, the business indicated how much grant funds they were asking for. The maximum amount they could ask for was $2,500 per business. They will also have to give reporting back to us to show how they use those expenses. The vast majority are going to use it for utilities and rent and paying employees.
Sadie, can you give us an update on how Monroe Pavilion's coming? The new shopping center.
As they're underway, as far as I know, with construction. We've been in conversation with potential developers with surrounding sites that are just kind of looking, that would be supporting to commercial. So next site is still helping recruit developers for retail and other commercial uses around that. But to my knowledge, Patrick might have better information. Everything's on, they're still moving forward. Nothing's changed that I know of.
Good. And do you have any updates on how some of the essential businesses like the grocery stores and drugstores are doing?
Well, grocery is, I would assume, doing really well because they're having unprecedented amounts of traffic. But I mean, I only have just personal reference. No one's reached out. No one's, obviously grocery, even our downtown grocer has not reached out for grant funds. They're have a lot of traffic right now.
Larry, they should be doing fine because the prices went up on everything in the store.
Well, I would hope that they're also protecting people. Yes,
I think Home Depot have, and I think Walmart have somewhat adopted Home Depot as far as having a certain amount of people in the store at one time, which I think was very critical with the situation that we're in. I don't know how many they're letting in. I know Home Depot was only letting in 100 at a time, which sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot considered with the size of the store. So I think we probably need to look into how many Walmart actually letting in at one time.
All right, any other questions about the downtown? If not, Mr. Mayor, we'll run it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Ms. Crawford, Parks?
Thank you. Mr. Bailey, can you give us an update for Parks, please?
Yeah, the one thing I was gonna kind of discuss with y'all, I know a lot of towns and cities around us have closed parks. They've closed off sections of them. That's the one thing I kind of felt like maybe we should avoid for a period of time, as long as things seem to be reasonable. Every time I've been by Matthews, Pilot, Childers, I mean, there's not a huge traffic volume there, and I think everybody's respecting kind of that gathering rule and gathering ordinance. So I think everything has looked pretty good on that end. Pilot Park, you know, we had the bid submission due in March, and we postponed that till the end of April. As of right now, I'm going to still hopefully hold to that, and we can maybe come and discuss something in May about a proposal and a low bid or something. We'll just see how all of this unfolds. The Childers Park project with the lake, I actually pushed off at least a month simply because I didn't want to close down 2/3 essentially of one of the largest parks in the city if that's people's venue to get outside and kind of get out of their homes a little bit, as long as they're respecting, the not a large group. And so far they have, from what I've seen. But Logan and I had talked about it, that we would kind of revisit that in a couple of weeks, and potentially if everything kind of starts getting better, then we'll release the contractor to start that project. But that's the biggest reason you haven't seen that take place yet. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any question for Mr. Bailey? If not, thank you, Mr. Bailey. Turn it back over to her.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Moving to items of discussion, Madison Davis subdivision, Phase 3 final plat. Patrick?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. As it says on the cover sheet there, this is a long-standing planned residential district that's finally gotten to the point where we can put it before you for final plat approval. Development agreements in place, the covenants recorded with the county, and like it says, then incomplete improvements are covered by the development agreement. Approval of this plat will just allow them to record the lots, sell them, and see to it that they get developed after a long time. So I'm sure they're happy, and we'll be happy to see what's built there as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Kelly? Before we adjourn, I have two things. One, Sadie and Leanne, and I think the team from the chamber all put out sidewalk chalk around town. Had a lot of participation. I don't know if we have any chalk left. Have you seen any buckets with any chalk, Sadie?
No, most of them have been used up. There's some still at the Hammock Park, but we have chalk to refill. So we might go back out and refill some of those spots again. But no, people, they came out and participated, and most of the chalk drawings were very tasteful and appropriate.
I think I've only seen a tasteful and appropriate, and it was really, really cool community spirit shown by our general public. The other thing, and I know we're trying to spend our dollars locally when we can and support our downtown businesses, and of course support our grocery stores as well. But at a financial questionable time like this, having to fix something like a garage door is never on the top of my list. But I was referred to Jimmy White, who's one of our firefighters, who came by and just did an outstanding job. So, when it comes to stuff that you need around the house, using Facebook, if any of our firefighters, police officers, anybody who works around town has the ability or the option to help you, I hope you'll please keep them in mind. So please, Chief, if you would tell Jimmy I bragged on him. With that being said, I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
To approve. I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley, and was that a second by Mr. Little?
That's right.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
And we're 7 feet apart.